Happy Monday, everyone. I am super excited to... I have sound playing somewhere, sorry. I don't know where the sound's playing from. Okay, I'm super excited to... We don't know. I have echo. I don't know where it's coming from. No idea. Yeah, super excited to geek out with you today with Daniel, who is the creator of the Curl project, and it's a massive project that you've probably all used. And I want to let Daniel talk while I try and fix my audio because it's very strange. It's coming through so clear to me that it's very odd. So Daniel, please introduce yourself. I want to bring up your I'm bringing up your Twitter in the background. Daniel, please take over. Give yourself an intro. I'll be back in 2 secs.
Yes, so hello, I'm Daniel. I work on curl full time. I started a project a long time ago. I've been doing internet transfers and HTTP related stuff, open source, since the 90s. I do a lot of open source. I work on open source full time. So yeah, that's my life.
We love open source and Eddie Hub, so this is perfect. Right, I fixed my audio. It was obviously a rogue tab that I had with the YouTube that was running, so because it was a delay. Okay, so just to clarify for everybody, you work full-time on the Curl project.
Exactly.
On this project, I mean, it's a pretty big project. Everyone watching, let us know in the chat if you've heard of Curl or if you've used Curl. I know so many libraries out there use Curl as well. I mean, you can see you've got almost 800 contributors. I mean, this is amazing. So when did the project start?
Yeah, it's a matter of definition. It's actually, so I actually released it under the name Curl in '98. So in March 1998.
Okay, a while. Okay, and what gave you the idea to start it?
Yeah, so I at that point I renamed the previous project that I was working on. So I actually worked on it before. So, but I once started because I wanted to download HTTP to make a currency rate translator for my IRC bot that I was working on.
Right, I see. And did you keep using this when you renamed it? Did you continue with the same technologies?
Yes. So I renamed it because my previous names weren't really suitable. So I called it, before that it was URL get, but I added upload support to it. So no, it's not a get anymore. I need to rename it. So I sort of struggled with what to call it.
Naming is really hard. It is very hard. Everyone, don't forget to check out Daniel's Twitter. There's a link in the description below, and I will drop it in the chat as well, so you can follow the awesome stuff that Daniel's up to. Okay, so you work full time on this. So how does that work? Is that via GitHub sponsorship? How do you kind of, without going into too much obviously personal detail, how do you fund that? Oh, we lost Daniel. Daniel's back. Quite a few technical issues today. Quite a few technical issues, not just me. So we'll get there. Don't worry, everyone. It's Monday morning or Monday lunchtime, depending where you are in the world. So my question was, how do you work on the Curl project full time? I'm going to go straight in for this because I know this is what people really want to know more about because they love open source, they love working in open source, but they do struggle with finding the time, finding the funding. Do you make your majority of your money, again, without getting too much personal details, from GitHub sponsors and other external sponsors? Like, how does it work?
First, I wanted to just rewind a little bit. So I
Sure.
started Curl then a long time ago, and I did it as a spare time project for many years until I finally one day decided I wanted to give this a shot to do this full time. And then I struggle a little bit. How do I do that? Can I actually convert my spare time project into a full-time work? And then I decided to join my friends at this company called Wolf SSL and sell support for Curl, really. So keep on giving it away exactly like before, but pretty much selling support services, contract work, whatever anyone wants around Curl to companies who wants to pay for it. So primarily that is companies paying for support because they had issues and they want to make sure that everything goes smoothly forward.
Yeah, I think that's great. A lot of companies do that. Like they provide support for their tools, so you could use it for free. It's completely open source. But yeah, provide like professional support for that. And I think that's a really good model to have. And clearly it works. So that's great. That's awesome. Everyone, if you have any questions do let us know in the chat. It'll be really great for you to see your thoughts and your opinions and your challenges. Maybe from Daniel's experience can share that as well. So it's great. Everyone's saying hi in the chat, which I think is awesome. I love it when they're super welcoming my guests. And so what's your background then? So let's wind back a bit further. And so how did you get into tech?
Well, I had a friend who got a Commodore 64 in the early 1980s. I'm old. So and I sort of got to know him, and I got into that interest. Wow, Commodore 64! You can actually program computers. You can play games, of course. But then in 1985, I bought my own Commodore 64, and I actually already then very quickly realized that it's a really fun thing, to program it, actually make it do what I want. So that my interest started then, and I learned programming. Started out with BASIC in the early years, and then I switched into assembly. I did games and demos on the Commodore 64, and then I was hooked. I spent a lot of spare time hours programming that Commodore 64, and then I switched to other computers, and it went on to different operating systems, and I sort of just went on. So I've always been very sort of interested in programming and development, and I thought I've enjoyed it ever since, and I've just kept on going.
That's awesome. And here's a really good question. I saw someone, here we go, Dev Overflow. So how's it like seeing programming language mature and grow over time? Because what language did you start off with on the Commodore 64?
Oh, you love me because I'm so conservative, so I'm just stuck to old stuff. So yeah, I started because I got into the Commodore 64 first, and it has BASIC on board, right? So you learn that Commodore BASIC, and I think it was a good intro in learning how programming actually works when I was in my teens then. And then I got into assembly, and assembly is completely different, but assembly is good in another way because then you actually learn how CPUs work and how the actual, really, really low level stuff works. So that was fun. And then after that, I pretty much switched to do things in C in the early 1990s. And I mostly stuck to C programming since then. I know other languages, and I sort of dabble with other languages too. But for reasons, I switched to, curl is written in C, right? And some of my other projects I work on are also written in C because they're I really enjoy working on these kind of fundamentals library sort of things, and for doing fundamental libraries for systems, that C has been the dominant language and really has been the only viable language for many years. I think the situation changes a little bit right now. So now we're starting to see that you can actually go with other languages, but that's more like the last 5 years or so. And I've stuck with my old ways, and since I'm using, so I spend so much time and energy on curl, I want it to remain that portable, widely available library. So I think I need to maintain it in C, or C has to be an option for curl for a long time, even if I also can, I've started to support parts of it written in other languages and sort of slowly migrating so that I can replace parts of it written in other languages over time. But of course, started in the 90s, going to now to 2021, of course, there have been a lot of languages coming and going. And, not only languages, but, project models and fashion things that come, things come and go in this industry.
That is very, very true. Very, very true. Here's an interesting question, not something I would ask, from Gabrielle. I hope I pronounced that right. Have your home country adopted curl more because you grew up there, or did not have any effect? I don't know if you can measure that or not.
I don't think so. Because actually, most people I don't think know about curl in general, and a lot of people don't know that curl was made by me or that I have any relation to Sweden, right? So most people just get curl. Would say they don't even know that I'm behind it or where I happen to live or where this room is or so. So no, I don't think my home country has any particular high usage of curl.
Got you. I really like this question from VJ. What's the most interesting place you've seen curl implemented?
Oh, that's a hard question to answer because curl is literally everywhere, right? So where isn't curl? I think one of my favorite devices, at least, is this kitchen mixer thing. I have a photo somewhere. It's a blender, I think, sort of for the kitchen with a little screen on it. You can have it in, so it can bring up some recipes and you know how to cook food and stuff. And that little thing runs curl, and I like that.
Oh my word, that is crazy! See, I'm thinking, web API, kind of geeky people, but it's used in like a consumer product.
Yeah. That's the major part of curl. Every TV, every car, every printer, every fridge, every blender. So whatever you can think of that is connected to the internet has a high likeliness of having curl somewhere in there. Every mobile phone, every tablet. So yeah.
This is a clip I need to take out, I think, share on socials, because I knew I didn't appreciate that curl was used in most libraries, programs, frameworks, etc. But I didn't think of the consumer products. So that is unbelievable. In mobile phones as well, you're right. That is
Philips Hue lights, light bulbs. That's curl in them. So
wow.
Imagine, the volume of curl installations. It is literally in many places.
That is amazing. Wow, like well done. Like everyone say like well done. I mean but the responsibility for your project now. So now you can't, obviously you don't want to break it, but to really make sure it doesn't have any kind of, I don't know, backward breaking sometimes. I think you've got to think really clearly about that. Do your versioning right, I guess, to make sure you don't affect any of these products.
Yeah, and of course, sort of doing releases get more and more scary, the more and more responsibility, and it gets wider and wider. So yeah.
Wow. We're going to have to dig deeper into how you manage your open source project, and I have got it up with me. So we'll get to that shortly. So thank you very much, Vijay, for that amazing question. And here's another interesting question from Krish. How can I contribute to curl without any C knowledge? I'm a total beginner, joined GitHub 10 days ago. Is that possible? Can they help with, say, documentation or automated testing?
Absolutely. I think there's I actually make I make the best effort to make sure to remember and give credit to anyone who helps out in the project. So in curl, we call contributors, that are people who actually help out in project. You don't have to be a committer to be a contributor. So if you can report a bug. That's also a way to help out, right? You answer questions. And then if you want to contribute exactly, on GitHub with changes, we have a lot of documentation, and a lot of it ends up being, typos or wrongs or maybe not clear enough. So there's a lot to do that have to be C code. C code, of course, is sort of if you want to work on the actual product, but there's a lot of other things as well.
That's awesome. So everyone, get involved, have a look, but remember, add value. So putting, if someone's raised a bug and you can confirm it with a different platform or different version, then that adds value. But be careful not to spam maintainers, because they get a lot of notifications already. So don't just kind of put 1 or 2 word answers and then another reply underneath answering yourself. Try and edit your previous one as well. So just be conscious of notifications. You must get a lot of notifications, right?
I do get a lot of them. But you're right. I mean, just someone confirming, I get this bug as well on this other platform, or it doesn't happen anymore on this version when I tried this. For example, helping out narrowing down things. It'll help someone who then eventually will look at the code, or maybe we can agree that it's not a bug. We just didn't agree on the function, or the documentation was wrong because it said it should do this, but it didn't, and blah, 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 like that. And I mean, there's often a few steps or many steps you have to go through before you can actually get into the code. And helping out with those details, that's very useful as well.
Exactly, I love that. Okay, it's an interesting question. So, what language would you choose if you were to make curl again from scratch, like today?
I don't know. I mean, since I'm such a conservative and I'm stuck in the C world, I guess I had a little bit of my blinders on, so I'm not sure I have the best possible, view of the language landscape to say this properly. But I would imagine that Rust would be a good contender.
Okay, that's Ultra Half guessed Rust. Yeah, I think so. Maybe a few years ago would have been Go, but yeah, Rust is definitely seems to be getting more. What Dev Overflow saying Go. I think Rust seems to be getting more popularity now, I think.
Yeah, and since I would still go for that system library level of functionality, I think Rust is more aimed for that than Go. But again, I'm not the expert on those languages, so I wouldn't presume too much.
Gabrielle, again, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right. I really like your questions. They're such questions I would never. I mean, everyone's asking great questions. Don't get me wrong, but these questions I'd never think to ask. So I really like these. Is there a place they use curl, but you wish they didn't?
I think that is more in the wider meaning that, of course, I think that, of course, we have a little bit too much things that are, the internet of shit, internet of things that are everywhere that are crappy. They don't upgrade their, and I think a lot of our products today are a little bit too trigger happy, or too eager to get network connectivity and internet connectivity, and therefore curl connectivity. So maybe some of those, they don't have to have internet or network connectivity, I think. But I think that's inevitable. We are going to have even more things connected to networks and the internet going forward. So I don't think whatever I say now is going to stop this development. I think we're going to go even further. I think everything today that we have more or less is going to be internet connected sooner or later, and then they will run curl as well.
Fayaz asks, I don't know what this is, but PyCurl, is that like an alternative to curl, or is that a wrapper for curl?
It's a wrapper. It's a binding then for Python to access libcurl. So libcurl is the library that is within curl. So libcurl is basically the library that does all the network transfers. Curl is basically a shell wrapper to make sure that you get a command line tool that uses libcurl. And then we have a lot of bindings for different languages. So I think we have over 60 different bindings documented. So whatever language you use, you can access libcurl. You can write your Rust program or Go program or Python or Perl or PHP and use curl through these different bindings. PyCurl happens to be a fairly popular binding for Python. Then, so if you want to use libcurl for your Python programs. Which you may or may not, but in comparison then to the native Python alternatives, libcurl has a little bit different feature set, and it's much faster. So if you want to do something, it might make a difference to you.
So apparently you tweeted that VW was using curl in their cars. That's just amazing.
Actually, I a few years ago, I went through out of the top 25 car brands in the world, 22 of them ship curl in their cars.
That is crazy. Wow.
So basically, if you have a car made the last few years, it's more or less guaranteed that you have curl in it.
Okay, so I'm looking out the window, seeing my car. My car has internet, so it probably has curl in it.
Yeah, most of them do then.
Mine is a German car, so I know we've got Carl in the chat, so mine's a German car, so yes. Here's an interesting question. I think the answer is no, but we're going to encourage a yes, hopefully. So Daniel, do you have a YouTube channel?
I do.
Oh, you do? Oh, let me check it out.
Yes. So yeah, I do occasional Twitch live coding, but more importantly, I do, since a while back, I do release presentations of. If you see that, you see my release presentations of curl releases. So I do a new video every new release.
Daniel's YouTube. I'll share that in the chat. There we go. Awesome. Great question. I didn't know about that. Okay, cool. And Carl says 13 issues open. I mean, I was looking at that. Like, you're really on top of your pull requests and your issues. I mean, this is amazing.
Yeah, that's also it says okay. If the audience haven't heard it, you asked about these easy newbie issues, perhaps to point people to But mostly we fix all the issues. The easy issues we fix really fast. So most of those issues we have now, they're the hairy ones. They're not that easy to fix. So, but also to be fair, we don't keep issues around that are, for example, feature requests, or if they're just lingering around too long, we move them to the to-do or known bugs issues. So we actually maintain this list as more or less bugs that we actually care about right now. For reasons, I think it makes the list easier to manage as for me as a project manager, and I think it's more honest. So things we actually don't. We are not going to work or fix on anytime soon. We move them to the known bugs list instead, because it's not actually an issue we're working on. It's more like someone is going to fix it eventually some point in the future. So we take them away. So that helps us to trim the list.
Got you. Makes sense. Krish, I think I can answer this one. I think curl can be used by Node.js. I think there is a binding as well.
Yes, there is one. There's also a fairly popular one.
Yeah, I think I've come across that. I'm sure I have. I think a lot of the projects use it underneath as well. So you might be quite abstracted away from it, but it's definitely there.
Exactly. So in some projects, there are multiple layers of bindings on top of curl, right? So you don't actually see or know that it is libcurl below. Oh, hang on 1 second. I have workers in the building. You talk for 2 minutes. I'll be back.
I can talk, no problem. So everyone, I'm loving these questions. These are great. We are going to go through them, and that's awesome. So do keep the questions coming. If I miss it, I do apologize, and just write it again in 5 minutes. Not straight away. Don't spam the chat. But yeah, write it a few minutes later, and then hopefully we can get it involved in the conversation. I hope you're finding this fun and enjoyable. I know I am. If you are, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe below as well, and hit the bell button so you get notified every time I go live and post a video, and it's completely free. It costs you nothing, but really helps support the channel. And I have shared some things on socials about this live stream. It would really help while we're waiting for Daniel to come back. It would help if you could like and reshare it, engage with it in some way, put a comment, reply. I'll take a screenshot of this. Actually, while this is perfect timing, so before we get back into the questions, let's do a pose and people can take a screenshot and share it on socials and tag us. So Daniel, do your best pose. Okay, hopefully people have got that. Cool, thank you. Right, next set of questions. So, interesting. Okay, this is a hard question. How would you describe curl to a non-technical person? These questions are so hard.
Oh, they are. And I've tried this so many times, and I failed roughly as many times as I tried. So, it's really, really hard. So I'm more or less given up. I'm more trying to explain curl as an internet transfer engine, but people don't know what an internet transfer is. So how do you get I don't think people in general, they don't even understand that you're actually getting. Browser actually gets data from somewhere to your browser, right? But people don't know that. They just browsed it. So talking about transferring data over the internet, that's not even to many people, that's not even a concept that they understand. So it's really, really hard. Depending on who I'm talking to, I'm trying to explain it as a little piece in an application that transfer data over internet. But I don't know.
No, I think that makes sense. And so what sort of features can curl do? I mean, like Krish says, they use it on the CLI. I know I use it on the CLI and probably use it indirectly with a lot of libraries. But in addition to, I guess, the get, the post, the put with the headers, are there any other features that we might not realize are there?
Yes, there's that is scratching a little bit on the surface. So yeah, so first of all, so curl is made. If we're talking about the command line tool, it's made to work with a URL. That's the name comes from, right? Client for URL basically, or C URLs, and the first part of the URL is the scheme, http:// or https://. That's a scheme. Curl supports 26 different ones of them. So it supports HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, FTPS, SCP, SFTP, IMAP, IMAP-S, SMTP, POP3.
Wow.
Yeah, and I can't even remember the entire list like that. So first of all, you can send email with it. You can get email with it. You can send. You can send form posts. You can send puts. You can do whatever you want to do with HTTP. Basically, you can do a lot of different HTTP versions. So curl supports HTTP. All HTTP versions: 1, 2, 3, 0.9, 1.0.
Wow.
And, there's so much to. And then right now we have 243 command line options to curl. So, and most of them can be used in together with other command line options, right? So there's really an I don't know.
Big combination of options.
The number of combinations is really, really unimaginable. Yeah, there are. I don't know. It's not possible to count how the number of combinations you can do it. Of course, a lot of the options are very niche, and you just need to know them or use them every once in a while, right? Because you know that you want to have that particular specific behavior for that particular time. Mostly, you just get away with using the 25 most common ones.
Yes. How often do you receive negative feedback? Apparently, there was a blog article where people contacted you because your email's often in the licensed text of products.
Wow. I don't get a lot of negative feedback actually. So most of my feedback that this refers to, they're mostly just confused or strange,
Right.
So I get, for example, questions from people that find my email in their car, and when someone emails me when they found my email in their car, you can know for sure that they're asking about something I have no idea what they're talking about.
Right, I see. So yes.
I have a problem with my GPS. Can you help me? Right. So I don't no, or stuff like that. That's not a negative feedback. That's just confused feedback, right? But I like that as well. That's often a good way for me to sort of an insight to realizing, oh, my code is in that particular project that they're reporting or asking me about. So I think I'm pretty fortunate that I get very little negative feedback. I mean, once in a while, but no, mostly just positive.
That's awesome. I'm not sure about this question. Mars mission, how your family could react to it. I'm not sure what that means. I guess if I can rephrase that to say, has curl been used in any of the NASA projects that have gone to space?
It has. The Mars helicopter landing. Yes, it's there.
That's amazing.
Yes, that's awesome because it suddenly made us reach another planet, right? So number of planets, 2.
That's unbeliable. That is epic.
Talking about fun things, fun places curl is used on. Yes. So of course that's. I think maybe my family, they're getting a little bit, tired and fed up with me saying, "Oh, curl is used there," but that's why. Oh yeah, Dad, go. Don't stand in the way of the TV. So so I'm not sure they are the ones who actually appreciate that particular detail the most, but I think it's awesome and it's really fun. And another, sort of a sign of approval that actually it works and people can trust it and it can be used for safely and it works for a lot of people, even for NASA.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, really impressive. Really impressive. How do you balance time with your, family? So, work-life balance. It's a good question. It's a hard question as well.
That's a hard question. Yeah. Well, it's easier now when I do it full time, right? Because now I can actually spend my entire workday on it because it's my full-time job. So that's easy. But since a very long time back, I've established a tradition with doing my spare time programming late at night. So basically when the rest of the family goes to bed, I spend another hour or two in front of my computer. And I do that. I still do that. I've done that for well, maybe 30 years by now. And of course, that gives me a lot of time to do whatever I want. So it has worked out really fine without me interfering too much with my family or their life.
Well, it's good to have that, have that balance and so forth. So that's nice. I'm sure, especially it wasn't easy at the beginning when trying to manage multiple projects with work and your own personal side.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, it has its ups and downs. Right? Sometimes it's really hard to find that time, and sometimes it's not. I mean, I have 2 kids. When they were small, of course, it was harder to find that time because then you're busy with the family life more. But it's also a matter of priorities, right? If you rather focus on developing, maybe you'd watch a little less TV. I don't play computer games. You sacrifice some other stuff instead of your programming time, maybe.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
People have hobbies anyway. Yeah, so this is my hobby. So I spend a lot of time on my hobby.
Nice. No, that's really good. You're right. We all have 24 hours in a day. And some people, like I have some people who say, Eddie, I don't know how you spend so much time on open source and creating videos and live streams. I'm like, but you spend 6 hours a day gaming. And so just reduce that to an hour. And I know it's hard. That's why I packed up my PlayStation 3 years ago when I started kind of my YouTube channel, and a year ago starting Eddie Hub. I packed up my PlayStation because you can't. It's really hard to just play an hour. You get into it and you go, I'm almost at the next level, and it's addictive, and that's what they want you to do. So I packed it up and I said, right, I'm not playing the PlayStation anymore because you do just kind of get swallowed into that. Just like how we get swallowed into open source and geeking out with the community, but this has more value as well as fun. It also has more value. So yeah.
Right, and it's a decision you can make, right? Either you spend time on that or spend on that. As you said, we have 24 hours per day. What do you do with those 24 hours? It's a lot of the time you have to do something else, right? You have to have a work, you have to spend time with your family, you have to make sure that you stay healthy, and you have to eat. But then there's a few more hours that you could do something with, maybe.
Exactly. We did touch on this already about the backward compatibility being paramount. I guess this is where you have a lot of automated testing to make sure it doesn't break.
Yes. So we have a lot of tests, and we have a lot of CI all the time, and we have so generally we keep that pretty good. So we don't break backwards compatibility, and we haven't done that for a very long time. Basically, since we introduced libcurl, we introduced a few examples back then, and you can pretty much build all those still today with the same API, same library. So yeah, that's a very for us, that's one of the major selling points with curl, that when you get curl, you know that we won't break behavior. We will maintain the API for the next 20 years, and you can rely on that. When you upgrade curl, it won't break. It'll work the same way as it did before. We will add features and add stuff over time, but the old stuff will remain there. So yeah, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of testing. But I think we've found a way to do it that it's not a big burden for us day to day. It's more we have it established, and we just make sure that we have those boundaries in place, and we have. If you stick within this little thing, we know that it's safe and you can go forward like this.
Nice. And I noticed that you're using Circle CI and GitHub Actions. Any reason why you've got kind of both running?
We have even more than that. We run, I think right now we have 6 different CI systems.
Oh, wow.
And we use them
for that?
Yes, for maximum parallelism and for multiple platforms. And so we basically build on. So we build on Mac, Windows, FreeBSD, Linux, and some ARM systems, and we have had some other different setups. So it's only since I think we do a little bit over 100 builds for every commit. So it's been a matter of making sure that we have the maximum amount of parallelism. So by using many, we can do that. Because everyone is limiting the number of concurrency.
Got you. Makes sense.
And over time, it also turned out to be rather useful, because each and every one of those services tend to be, sometimes they have a problem, sometimes another one has a problem. So it's also good to not have all the eggs in the same basket. So it has turned out pretty good. But it it also has the reverse problem that usually one of them has a problem. So there's, I don't know.
Pros and cons, I guess, but hopefully it sounds like the pros outweigh the cons, so that's why you're doing
hopefully.
it.
Yeah.
So Carl has suggested, have you looked into Gitpod to help people contribute to your project, like Gitpodifying your project?
No, I have not.
It's like code spaces. So you have a button people can kind of click, it sets up the environment for them and they can just run the tests or they can
All right.
do that. I've started using it on our projects and I'm loving it for pull requests, like really loving it. So now, before I used to add to the URL of the pull request .patch, and it used to give me a patch file, download it, apply the patch, but I'd have to find the right commit that the pull request was branched from and all the rest. But now I just literally just hit the Git pod button, sets up an entire environment, and I'm loving it to review pull requests. I can test in code, I can make some tweaks and make some suggestions in the pull request that I've actually tested, rather than like blind coding and saying, have you thought about doing this? So yeah, have a look if you get a chance. I just know what your thoughts are on your project, if it would add value and so forth.
Oh, right. No, I think everything we can do that lowers the bar for newbies or contributors, that's a good thing. So I think whatever we can do that makes it easier for the next one to do whatever they want to do, fix a typo in the documentation or fix a hairy bug, that is a good thing. So I think that is always valuable effort.
Exactly. Okay. Okay, apparently Lael says, give me this call's curl so I can debug this issue. An expression we use on a daily basis. So curl is becoming, what's the word? I don't know what the word is that you use where, people say, instead of saying vacuum cleaner in England, we say Hoover.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and I also personally like the phrase that sort of just curl it, as people has been used more than once. And I yes, of course, that's another sign that we have succeeded to some degree, right?
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Like when I say to my family, I say, oh, don't worry, someone will just slack me the message. And it's like, what? And or someone will just slack me. It's like they're going to slack you, like they don't get it. But yeah, us techies do. So it's awesome that curl has gone into that space. I didn't know that, so thank you so much for sharing. But I do always ask people when they've got an issue with their API, I do say, can you send me a curl representation of what you're trying to do, and therefore I can kind of,
right,
debug
and
it
it
and
has.
test it.
I mean, looking when people. HTTP APIs are becoming really popular, right? So it's really widespread thing, and so much of it is documented with curl command lines, and this is how you use it with curl, right? So that's another thing that you see curl everywhere. And if you just go, for example, in GitHub that you're showing here, if you go to the GitHub API documentation, you can see a curl command line, I think, for pretty much everything, how to drive it with curl.
Yes, I was just looking at, when I go to the data stacks is like Astra, it's their examples are also in curl as well, which are really, really useful because I can translate that into any language, or I can just test it if I want as well. And I just think that is awesome. I just think it's great. So look, straight in, want to make some connections to my database, their examples. Like, I guess they have other examples like Node and Python and all the rest. But straight away, I have the curl examples that I can just get on and start playing with. So yeah, love that.
And another thing that was also developed is all those. For example, all the browsers nowadays has this copy as curl command when you go into the developer tools, and that is also becoming a more widespread thing. I know other debuggers or HTTP tools can do that translation copy as curl thing. So curl becomes more and more of a standard debugging tool or reproduce HTTP whatever tool.
Yeah, like an independent, where you're not tied to someone using this library or this framework or whatever. It's like an independent.
Exactly, because most people probably has it already, so you can just run this because most people can run it.
Yeah, most people run it and they trust it as well. I've seen some React projects, they all using different HTTP libraries. And it's like, I have a problem with the API. It's like, just send me the curl of what you're trying to do and we'll figure out if it's a problem with the API or a problem with your code sort of thing. So it helps narrow it down. What is the next big thing that you see curl embracing? So thank you very much, Felipe. Hope I pronounced it.
Well, the next big thing that we already are embracing that it's not quite there yet is HTTP 3 support, which it's there, but it's not complete. HTTP 3 is not entirely standard yet, but almost. So that is one thing, and HTTP 3 is quite a different step up from HTTP 2. So that's it takes a lot of tweaks and stuff. So we have a lot of rough edges left there to polish away, and then we're discussing a possibility of supporting WebSockets going forward. And if we do that, that's a pretty big chunk of things to take care of.
Yes, please do. I love using WebSockets, but it's a real pain to do some quick tests, and it's a real pain to actually run automated tests against WebSockets. So yeah, if you could do something around there, I think that will change the landscape for testing libraries that can actually do those tests, because they probably just use the curl underneath. They're probably using it already, but yeah, for WebSockets, it's really hard to do automated testing.
So that's an area we're exploring right now, I should say, because also a matter of it's a pretty big chunk of work, so I need someone to help me sponsor that work. But there are talks in progress, so we'll see where that goes.
Awesome. I keep my fingers crossed to have it by the end of October. I'm just joking.
Sure, no problem.
Hey, you all heard it live. It came out from Daniel's mouth. He said yes. Perfect. And I've just brought up your GitHub stars. I should have done this at the intro. My intro I had it planned really well, but with that whole, don't know where that kind of, tab, I think I had YouTube open on a previous tab somewhere hidden. But Daniel is also a GitHub star, which I think is awesome. So it was great to geek out with you at the NovaConf. Those 2 days passed really quickly, but it was good fun. Okay, so what other questions do we have? Loads of questions. Okay, let me catch up as well. Shreya, you asked a question not in English, so sorry I can't answer that. If you can keep it to English, the only language I speak. Okay, people talking about pull requests. Okay, interesting. We'll have a look later on. Shreya, you asked the same question again in a different language. Again, please ask in English. VJ says curl might just be the first intergalactic open source software.
Yeah, they should send them some satellites. But since curl is used for these internet transfer protocols, it only makes sense when you can actually use the internet protocol. So I guess some of them are not really suitable for really long distances. So I guess intergalactic transfers is a little bit too far away for the curl protocols to make sense. I don't know. I don't even know how actually they use it on the helicopter thing on Mars, because I think they rather use it somewhere internally between the helicopter and the rover or something, because it wouldn't make sense to actually use it between Mars and Earth, for example, because I think it's too far for regular TCP/IP protocols to be useful. But again, I have no idea what they're using it for or how or anything. I've just been told that they're using it. That's good enough for me.
Yeah, that's still awesome. Like, I'd be so happy with that. Exactly. Don't care what you're using it for. It could be for the coffee machine. I'm happy.
I don't need to know anymore. That's fine.
Exactly. Anurag, I'm not sure what you mean about these code explained short. So please let us know what you mean on that. Daniel, are your kids also in tech as well? That's pretty cool if they are.
Well, I will say I have a daughter and a son, and my son is at least interested in the area, and he's been doing some YouTube streams and stuff like that. So he's at least interested, but none of them have really found development the way I did or the way I do. So we'll see. They're still young. They're 15 and 18 now, so they have time to find the right path in life.
Exactly, and for the people who know me, I'm just going to share this short story. Is when I went to uni to do electronic engineering at 18, I didn't know what coding was. I didn't even have a computer. I went to university and I hated my first day because they said, we're going to send you by email your homework. And I was like, oh, how do I do an email? What is it? And friends helped me out. And then in the second year, I think it was second year, we got some coding modules, very basic coding modules, and I freaking hated it. Like, I hated coding so much that I would pick harder modules like thermodynamics to try and compensate not to do the coding. And then I finished my undergraduate degree in electronic engineering, and I detested coding. And then I did my master's in advanced electronics into stealth systems, and I coded that. And I don't know why I picked that, but I did. I really started to enjoy it because I could see kind of the theory almost. I did like a model where I could model the scattering cross section of these things, but I could check it with my programming, my theory. Did it match? Was it good or not? And I started really enjoying it from there. So it's really strange how I went from one extreme, from absolutely detesting it to absolutely loving it, coming out of uni, getting into electronic engineering and hating it and going, you know what, I want to be a coder. Attending my first hackathon, and then ever since then, never worked a day in my life. So yeah, I think, you know, at that age they are so young and things can change, and I see people changing at 30 or 40 into coding and loving it, and that's fine, even 50.
Yeah, and actually there are many types of coding too. I mean, many different languages and different ways of doing programming. So maybe you just haven't found your way of programming yet. So maybe I'm sure it can come one day, or maybe it won't. I don't mind. They have the opportunity to go there if they want to.
Exactly, and I have a great mentor as well, which would be epic. Here's a question about, can the project keep going after you have possibilities to keep up to date? I'm not sure I quite understand that. I don't know if I can rephrase the question slightly and say, do you find the project is giving you more work, or have you now got on top of all the issues and pull requests, so as they come in you can kind of keep on top of it? You've got a good like workflow, you've got a good team. I'm guessing you've got other maintainers on the project that are helping you as well.
Yes, I do. So yeah, we're a bunch of people that are actually around for the long term. So well, I'm pretty much on top of things. Of course, I think it's back to the things that things come and go a little bit. It's phases or periods. So sometimes I feel like I'm real on top of things. You know, I'm shrinking down the list of issues, and oh, look at this right now. We're someone in the area of 40 something open issues and pull requests, and that sort of feels great because now basically I know all of them. But you know, in 2 months' time, there might have been a few people that have showed up and just, you know, pushed, and suddenly I'm up in a total of 100 and 150. I feel like, oh, I will never get around to manage all of this. So I think it comes and goes a little bit, depending on a lot of outside factors that I really can't affect myself, like number of maintainers involved right now, or someone who suddenly finds interest in curl and they want to do something, or they realize that curl can't do something, or whatever. So in general, I've done this a long time now, so I've sort of come to just take everything with a calm. It doesn't really matter if everything piles up or it goes down. I know that long term, if I just keep at it, it'll just, you know, it'll become something over time anyway. So I just need to keep nudging on. I fix my bugs, I file my pull requests, and you know, on and on and on and on and on. So it doesn't really matter if it goes up and down. For my personal, part at least. Then of course it differs how many others that are doing the same thing. Because if more people are doing the same thing, then we of course can go faster in the project and we can do more. But I usually cannot affect what others do, since sure. I'm the only one here who's getting paid to do curl full time. So I'm the only one who has the luxury to actually spend my entire day, you know, thinking and fiddling with curl stuff. The others are working on curl. They do it in their spare time or as sure. part of some work where they, you know, they use curl for a product and they just want to do something to make sure their product runs better. So they just, you know, they fix the little thing and send it to me. So I realized that all the others are there. They come and go, and sometimes there are many people doing a lot of things, sometimes not so many doing not so much stuff.
No, makes sense. Okay, so now, yes, some people say, well, my apps survive 10,000 users, and then it's like, will it work on more planets than Mars and outside our solar system and so forth?
And not only that, you know, I have this estimate that curl runs in more than 10 billion installations. And, you know, when you reach 10 billion installations, is that a saturated market? Is there actually anywhere more that we can? how can curl actually run on more places? It's actually so pervasive everywhere. So it's more or less, we're already more or less everywhere where we can be.
Wow.
Or are we? I don't know.
There's more devices being created all the time. So
yes, exactly. And recently over the last few years, actually also struggled to make sure that we can provide an even smaller curl to make sure that we can actually get into even smaller devices easier than we've done before, because that has been previously that has been a sort of a complaint that curl has been too big for some of the smallest devices.
I'm trying to see. Can we see how big it is?
How big is the easily, but because it matters on so many different factors.
Right. Okay. Got you. Okay.
So it depends on target, and the curl also can be built to use a lot of different third-party dependencies. So a little bit then depending on if you include them in the count or not, or which one you use. And so it's, you can go if you look on a Debian, on a recent Debian 64-bit installation, it takes about 15 megabytes, including all the third-party dependencies. And 15 megabytes, that's huge if you're looking at those tiniest IoT devices.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, Gabrielle explained their comment. They were trying to not be too negative. It was your legacy. Like, can it continue after
if I get
you
run
go?
over by bus tomorrow, the bus factor.
Or the positive version of the bus factor. If you win like Euro millions or whatever, and you're like, screw this, I got 10 billion.
The lottery factor.
Lottery factor, exactly.
So yeah, that's a good question. So it's really hard for me to say, will it survive my demise, right? Or if I win the lottery, if my success, if I go away to live on a beach tomorrow, what happens with it? So I do everything I can to make sure that I don't have any secrets in the project. There's nothing, I don't have any particular magic knowledge about the project or in the project that I haven't documented or made available online or publicly. So there shouldn't be any, hidden corners or things only I know of because I have documented it somewhere in my basement. So there shouldn't be any kind of that. And I also make sure that I'm not alone in having, access to push things or edit things or do things in the project. Anyone can do that. Not anyone, but more than me at least. So we have maintainers and teams to do things. So if I go to a beach tomorrow, someone else can do releases, handle the issues, pull requests, maintain everything, and go on like that. But if it will happen, I mean, that's another question, right? And I've
go on, sorry.
No, and personally, I think this is so much fun, so I have no intentions of leaving anytime soon either.
So I have a question on that note. Have anyone ever offered you money to buy curl from you, like transfer it to their organization or to their personal account? Has anyone said? Any company or person? No. Okay, interesting. I would have thought, I don't know, some company would have said, hey, we want to buy curl from you and we want to own it now. Okay, interesting.
No, and speaking of that, we're not under any umbrella, right? So we're also very free, and we're not bound. We're not in GNU or Apache. We don't, we're not under any organization, and we're not run by any major company. No major company has any effect on us at all, actually. So we're very free to do whatever we want in this project, which I think is good. I appreciate that.
No, that sound. It is good to have that flexibility. Yasun, we did answer this before, but we can cover it again for anyone who's joined. So, Daniel, interesting. I saw you do have backers on here as well. So
so we have a lot of different ways to do funding, really. So I usually, since I have this small problem, since I work on curl so much and my life is curl so much, sometimes people see me and curl as more or less the same thing, while I always try to make sure that curl is the project, right? I work on it a lot, but it's not me, it's not my project, it's our project, and I work on it a lot and I want to make sure it succeeds. So therefore it's separate from me. So if for example, if you go to GitHub sponsors, you can sponsor me. But sponsoring me is sponsoring my work on whatever I work on, which is not sponsoring curl. Of course, then I work on curl mostly, so it'll be primarily curl anyway. But I want to make sure that's distinction, right? And you can then sponsor curl. You can go to GitHub sponsors, or you can go to Open Collectives.com/curl, and you can sponsor curl directly. And we have a lot of sponsors like that. So we get a lot of funding into the curl project like that. But the curl project is not me, right? You don't sponsor me by that. You sponsor the curl project. And then you can, and then I work for Wolf SSL, so I get a full-time paycheck every month because I work with curl for Wolf SSL. And this works because companies are paying Wolf SSL for curl support. So I work for Wolf SSL at my all days doing curl support for these companies, and then I get my paycheck every month. So I have these different sort of things, and I think most of them need to work to various degrees to make sure everything is this streamlined. If and for example, going back then to if you fund curl the project, if you go to either GitHub sponsors or Open Collective, they end up at that same place anyway. That's funding that goes into the curl project, and we use that money primarily right now to fund the bug bounty program. And we will also use it to fund developer meetups and stuff like that. But we have sort of made a pledge that we'll use it to
That's awesome.
Enhance the project, or whatever the project thinks we need the money for. We use it for the project's sake. So
that's awesome. Could you do me a favor and elaborate a little bit more on the bug bounty program? What is that?
Yeah, so we have, if you go to hackerone.com/curl, you can pretty much anything that is security related in curl. If you find or suspect a security issue in curl, you can go there. Then you press the submit report button there, and you explain the security problem in curl. And if you do that, we confirm that it is a security problem, and then it, within the scope and blah blah blah, you get cash from the curl project. We say that we pay out up to 12K USD if you find a critical bug, but nobody has yet found a critical bug, so it's a bit unfair maybe. But still,
but still, 1,000 for a low is still really good. Like $1,000 is amazing.
Yes, so nowadays we pay usually on average somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000, I think, per security bug. Yeah, it says average, say 700 to 800, but we're trying to raise it gradually. So we've actually been paying smaller and gradually going bigger and bigger, because we have more and more money, so we can spend more and more money on this too.
Makes sense. And this one would set 22 payouts, would that be?
Yes.
Wow.
I think so, yes.
That's awesome. Cool. My Discord is going crazy with notifications. So I can hear bing, 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 bing. It's like, okay. So hopefully it's okay and nothing too bad. I'm going to quickly have a quick look at that. Just make sure there's no bot or something spamming. So give me a second while I do that. But yes, and hopefully that answers your question. And we are coming up to an hour. So if you have any dying and burning questions for Daniel, do let us know. And Daniel, anything else you'd like to add as a potential kind of closing note and so forth?
Well, no, not really. I could just maybe emphasize that, I mean, we can say that curl is a big project in that it's used widely. It's old, and it's everywhere. Everybody knows it. And I actually get a lot of comments from people that say, what, curl has bugs? And I also get that sort of, what are you doing all day, since I've been using curl for so many years and it still works the same as it did 10 years ago. But we're still continuously developing curl, and it's a easygoing and a friendly and approachable project. It's really easy to help or contribute. We don't have any particular bureaucracy or hurdles or bars to get through to get into the project. So that is also why we have this many contributors, because it's very easily accessible and easy to get into. So if you have anything or you're interested in, just join in, and we have an IRC channel if you want to chat or talk curl during the days. And of course, I tweet a lot of curl crap or stuff. or
Not crabs.
tidbits.
Good stuff. So you have an IRC channel. So that's quite interesting. You've kept it in IRC. You haven't moved to Discord or Slack or anything like that.
No, we've been entertaining that idea, but we've maintained the RC channel. Yes.
Okay, nice. I haven't used IRC in like so long. Ever since I think Slack came out, and now I've moved to Discord. I don't find Slack very good for community stuff, but awesome to see that you've kept it in IRC. That is old school.
Yeah. We have
Really like
178 people in there right now.
That's very, very cool. So yes, everyone do go check it out. And also I think there are some nice clients that you can get nowadays, which were back before we used to do it all on the command line, but there are a lot nicer clients that you can use.
There are. I mean, IRC is still IRC. It's still, it's still not as easy and UI-ish friendly as some of the alternatives, but it's very sort of focused on chatting, at least.
Yes.
No animated GIFs.
Yes, no animated GIFs. Animated GIFs sometimes go a bit crazy, so it's probably like a good thing. Probably a good thing. Okay, let me check. Okay, yes, Eddie, someone's spamming. Okay, Eddie bot, I've just banned them, so a stupid bot got in. That's very annoying. Okay, it's an interesting question. If you've got time, Daniel, for a few more.
Oh, I do.
Awesome.
Shoot.
So, with GUIs getting more popular, do you see yourself releasing a GUI for curl, or will you let someone else do that?
I would let someone else do it. It's always been my sort of intention to stick curl, the command line tool, to be a command line tool, and libcurl to be the library that allows anyone to do anything. So if anyone would do a GUI on top of that, there are a few available, and if someone thinks there's an opportunity to do a better, or the final grand one, go ahead and do it. I don't think I need to do it, and I'm certainly sure that I'm not the suitable person to get close to GUI programming, because that's not my forte. Sort of. So I stick to the fundamentals. I can do network transfers. Someone else can do the GUI stuff. I can provide the API for the transfers.
No, that makes sense. Work to our strengths. So that's a good idea. Awesome. Okay. So Fayaz asks, tell us something about open source repositories and open source developers. I'm not sure. Kind of, it's quite a vague question. What do you think, Daniel? Can you answer something around that area, or should we ask them to rephrase it? Because I'm not entirely sure myself.
I don't understand really.
No, nor do I. We'll get them to rephrase that. So yeah, that's. I still cannot believe you used in mobile phones and cars and went to Mars. I mean, it's just like amazing. I'm happy when my project gets an extra star or something on GitHub. I'm like, yes, which means nothing at all. But yeah, so that's just really epic.
And since it's entirely open source, it also gets to this position that I don't know the users, and I don't know how many are using it, and nobody's telling me about them using it. So it's just, one day you realize that, oh, this thing is using curl, and oh, this particular thing happens to be used by 1 billion people, or 2, or another planet or something. So it's suddenly, you realize, oh, I have 1 billion more users. I didn't know about that. Yesterday I didn't know, now I know. So it's the scale and the change is it's fascinating. Of course, now it's been like this for a while, so I'm getting a bit accustomed, a little bit.
Sure.
Oh, sure. Another 1 billion users. I mean, who's that? What's that? Doesn't matter to me. And frankly, often also it doesn't matter, because it doesn't make any impact or change to me, right? If
yes,
the YouTube client on Android uses curl, right? I had no idea that that's what is that 1.5 billion downloads or something. I've never talked to them. They never told me about it. They never reported about me knowingly. So it's more
wow,
cool. They use it. That's awesome. But yeah.
That is unbelievable. Because yes, I was thinking mobile phones and maybe some of the hardware on it, but you're right. Now you've got the apps that potentially use it, like YouTube uses it. I mean,
Right.
it's just
Yeah, they use it. So, and then
unbelievable.
a number of apps. So there's YouTube, there's Google Photos, and there's going to be Instagram, Spotify, and Skype. And so on a typical mobile phone, you'll find curl installed in 5, 6, 7, 8 apps or so. It's also popular in some of those very high volume games like Fortnite and Grand Theft Auto and a few others. Like
Wow.
100.
Okay. I have to step up my open source game, and I think one of our projects got like downloaded like I don't know 200 times. Like yes.
Yeah, but again, that's why the downloads is such a tricky thing, right? Because one of those users downloaded it once and then they installed it 10 billion times, and you can count one download. That's not a lot, right? But suddenly it's sort of the scale when someone ships that and deploys that somewhere, so it just goes boom.
True.
Still just one download for you, but it's
True.
a huge number of users somewhere.
No, that's very true. But to be honest, the 200, I think like 199 of them were CI cloning it, but it's like even worse. So for you, it's like better.
Right.
Like you got 200, you know it's going to be like 2 billion. For me, I got 200, it's probably like 3. It's the opposite.
Yeah, you're right. The CI growth, they skew the download numbers pretty significantly. It's like
Yes.
when we have this Docker image for curl, and that has the same thing, right?
Yes.
So they pull the Docker image a huge number of times, but do they really? What do they use it for? Probably just CI builds all over the world pulling Docker.
That's so true. Okay, I think it's a really good place to end on that high note and that funny note. So Daniel, thank you again so much for that. Everyone, I'm going to share some links in the chat as well, so you can follow Daniel on Twitter. This is the curl project as well. Let me drop that into the chat. I'm sure you've all found it already. Oh, and Daniel's YouTube video as well at 5.36 subscribers as well, and hopefully we can encourage Daniel to do more videos. Pretty frequent. So you've got 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 2 months ago. Not too bad.
Yeah, and just sort of I've been a bit bad. I tried to do live coding sessions previously every once in a while, but I've been slacking a bit there. So I should get back to that too. That's fun.
We'll hopefully encourage you to do some. So no, that is epic. Thank you again so much for taking the time to come onto the stream and share your experience, your knowledge, your energy and your success, because I think it's just so motivational to hear that a project, an open source project, has done so well. It must be the most used open source project in the world. Is there any way, do you know that's true, or do you have a feeling about it? Like,
I usually use the phrase "one of" myself because I really can't tell, and
sure.
there might be some other stuff as well, particular some other smaller libraries, I guess. But yeah, certainly one of the most used.
I think that's a good safe bet, but yeah, it's definitely up there. Definitely up there. So that's awesome. Thank you again so much. Thank you everyone for the amazing questions. Daniel, if you could hold on the line, I'll bring up a timer for 1 minute. It won't be a whole minute, and then I'll just say thank you to you privately afterwards. Thank you everyone. Do reach out to Daniel and support the project as well. Thanks all for joining.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. This was fun.
Oh, yes. Awesome. Cool. We'll say bye. Bye everyone.
Bye.
And